all just going to introduce ourselves for the panel. This is just some of the amazing people that worked on it. I'm Erynn, I was the writer-director, and I played Gigi.
I'm Rebecca, I'm the editor.
My name is Vincent Burke, I played Bill.
Loehr, I played Candace.
Evelyn Smith, I did sound.
Kevin Stewart, I played Lester Diamond.
And I'm Stefan, Huddleston, and I did lighting.
Ah, so round of applause for these. So super open, like we just wanted to have a little panel discussion. Any questions from the audience? I had some things I wanted to ask the crew. But Stephanie, go ahead.
Okay, I have a question. First, I want to say I thought the lighting of the whole thing was fantastic.
Stefan, thank you.
That was awesome. I want to just ask if it was intentional. I'm sure it was, but was it intentional when you were wearing lighter colors after the whole choice to kind of take over, like the darker colors to the lighter colors?
Yes, Stephanie, I love you. It was a deliberate decision. Yeah,
I love it. Like,
we looked at the costumes and we wanted to do like a little bit of a play off the traditional colors, you know, because we wanted a woman's seizing power. When we all sat down for the crew meeting, we discussed the lighting in relation to how the clothes would look too.
Yeah.
So the clothes colors were also very deliberately chosen to, like, I guess, be enhanced with the lighting design. But also for Gigi specifically, like, you know, we didn't want to, like, Hitchcock is fine, like, there's nothing wrong with his color coding for the femme fatale, but we wanted to go a different direction from, you know, a woman seizing power being clothed in black or red, you know, it wasn't quite what we wanted to go with, so we went the direction of, you know, clothing her in a more white, pure type of thing.
Yeah, I loved it. And I just specifically really enjoyed the last few seconds. I don't know how many they were, but the super pink, the dark silhouette, like that was gorgeous. That could almost be like a little promo for the film. That was just really, really beautiful.
Thank you so much. Yes, we wanted to do a playoff. There was a couple different scenes because I grew up with gangster movies, you know. The first movie I remember seeing was Godfather 2. And I wanted to homage Godfather at the end when, you know, he like shuts the door, super dramatic, and then it's like, oh my god, he's a gangster. He's in charge. So I wanted to get a pull from that and use it in this, so yeah.
That was awesome.
Thank you so much.
And then my question is, I'm curious how you picked the location, because you could tell, I want to know more how you picked the locations to film and like the super like Ocean's 11 style like tactics of the whole like master plan and like the the staircase with the wire railing and all of that. Like what went into picking those settings?
You know, Evelyn and Stefan, you guys were there for me for some of the high shoots. Do you guys want to talk about that a little bit?
I don't know what I remember clearly.
Yeah. I mean, really, I think we kind of went with, kind of looked at what was around and available and what would look really good, and we did. I think we played some camera tricks with some things.
Yeah, 100%.
As student filmmakers are wont to do, you may or may not have access to certain locations. I know at one point we wanted to do some more. We wanted to do more shooting downtown in some of the alleys here, and then we had like a snowstorm.
Yeah,
and we were like, oh.
We were like, I guess that's, yeah. And also everybody uses campus as a student filmmaker, so it's difficult because you don't want somebody watching a movie and going, oh my god, look, it's Clyde's! Or like, look, it's the library! So we wanted to try
I
and
couldn't
find...
tell where they were.
Thank you, yeah, it was pretty much all on campus for the most part.
Almost all, yeah.
The poker sequence was actually shot in 2 different locations, so like movie magic is a crazy thing. Because you get in your head too, you're almost like, oh my god, is it going to cut together? Is it going to look fine? But the camera tricks, like Stefan said, it's so important. And I know, Kevin, you had some stuff about that on the podcast, so you want to talk about that a little bit, like the movie magic element?
Oh
actor?
yeah. I don't have much experience in like filmmaking or acting, so when you're like acting out these scenes and saying your lines and whatnot, it doesn't really, you can't really, like for myself, I can't really like see it yet when it's all, like I don't know what the final product's gonna look like. So it really kind of wowed me when it did come together, because a lot of the time, I guess I was worried too a little bit. I was like, oh, we're in a basement now. So. But yeah, it was just really impressive work by the editing and lighting.
And I guess also, Rebecca, from an editing perspective, because you're the one who puts it all together, so how does that work when you have a bunch of different locations? Like, I'd love for you to talk about a little bit. Editing side of things.
Editing, I don't know. I guess like it's different because you did all of the color correcting, so I don't know. I not really thinking about that when I'm editing. I'm just like, I just want to make sure that I get, when people are looking at each other and that they're looking in the right spot. And that like their movements match, because I like to edit on movement, so.
I was just super amazing for the dance sequence, and that was something that was really, really super cool.
Beautiful color correction.
Thanks.
And I thought you had really effective B-roll, like the tapping of the fingers and like.
That's something Rebecca and I definitely worked on, because I was working on my other project. It was a lot of shot reverse shot. Shot reverse shot is just, two people talking back and forth.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to make sure that there was a lot more to the visual side of the storytelling, because film is so more about what you see than what you hear for that. So Rebecca definitely was a huge voice in the insert shots.
What made you, sorry to have a question, but what made you choose the, like, throwback, like, silent film abuse?
Oh my God, yes!
Actually,
yes.
Vincent, like, pushing you down some stairs.
That film specifically, it's called The Blue Angel, and Marlene Dietrich is my cinematic mother. I love her more than anything and anybody. She is a number one for me. And it's actually her very first movie role that blew her up to a big sensation. And it's a German film about a cabaret singer who gets into a relationship, with like this man of average standing, I suppose. And the whole point of the movie is kind of the new woman versus the old man. And whenever I am putting films into context or looking at the core of what my beliefs are and what I want to put into cinema, it always goes back to The Blue Angel. And there's a scene of abuse that happens at the end when he realizes, he can't control this new kind of woman who is seizing power. So it just kind of felt like it worked really well to put in there, so, without like showing the violence, Because in film, you want to caution yourself against showing too much violence, because otherwise, I feel like an audience is more connected when they can assume the violence or look at it from their own perspective. Like, how do you feel about that, Vince? Because you were a participant.
Yes.
How does it feel being like a not abusive person playing an abusive person?
Well, I think it's interesting because I made it very clear from the get-go that I didn't want any scenes that would put me in a position in which I felt hyper-aggressive towards Erynn, even if it's just acting. I'm not a big fan of that hyper-violence, and I find that a lot of film artists attempt to not beautify it, but romanticize it, showcase it for some reason, and that might have something to do with that, like an unconscious violent response that a lot of, I guess, Americans have.
And to be fair, you didn't want Erynn to kick his ass.
Also true.
He saw that slap and was scared.
Yeah, we took a lot of shots that slap.
Oh man.
So,
Like, how hard it's gonna be.
yeah. I didn't want to get, when I was in the military, we had one of the first things we did is we sat face to face with someone else, and we had to hit the other person as hard as possible, like slap them. And so I was waiting for that. I was waiting for that. So I could snap it, like, knocking the mouth guards out. I really enjoyed the element of not physically showing most of that, because you're gonna, although it is important to know that it exists, we don't want to romanticize it for people who specifically go out to see the violence in these films and get a kick out of it, which is horrible. So that's.
I want to speak about it in a way that doesn't trigger the people who have gone through it. So that's another part of it.
Definitely as well. Yeah, you don't want to put people in a weird situation that is, because it is very close to home with the violence issues against women specifically, and so you don't like you said, you don't want to. Trigger's not. That's a. Maybe not the best term, but we don't want to put people in a position in which they're no longer paying attention to the film as much as they're reflecting on past memories.
Yeah, you don't want to force people into that, having to reflect on that.
Yes. You don't want to.
We have a question?
I think that the putting the black and white, the silent film thing in there was a very, very clever, very important. I mean, actually, it was. Because otherwise it would have just been, this is a very concise, short film about a woman taking power. And that's a reminder that you're not the first woman to have done that.
Yes, oh my gosh, yes.
And it filled that role of, looking back to previous strong women, while also eliminating the graphics part of being beat up.
No, 100%. I'm so glad you said that too, because it's so important for me as a female director to understand, well, there aren't a lot of female voices for directors in the industry now. I think one woman has won the Best Directing Oscar, like stuff like that. The history of women in cinema is so interesting, how like you have Alice Guy Blanchet, who really like pioneered all of these narrative film techniques being completely forgotten, and she made over 1,000 films and nobody talks about it. And it's just paying homage to those women, because I mean, I'm not the first woman to want to make a movie. I'm not the only woman perspective the world needs. But paying homage to the women who came before me and kind of paved the way for me to become a filmmaker is so important.
But she also filled a very important link, in your storyline.
Yes, and that too. So that all worked. It was all it was that.
Can I also just say, that was also cut from a longer sequence with the black and white film. So, I mean, I honestly really like how it ended up, even though it was cut for time, but the longer sequence I think also said about the same thing, because it didn't show any violence, but it showed her reflecting again with Marlene Dietrich when she's singing her song. So it worked.
Director's cut.
Yeah.
I was gonna say there is a longer version of this then?
Yeah, well, I mean, yes and no. We just, Rebecca and I didn't really like the shots in that so we decided to cut it. So I mean,
It worked. I mean, it works. So why do I need to do more work?
Right. Fair. Any other questions?
Also, it's part of the whole mood that you established. I initially thought that the cinematography was a little bit dark at the beginning.
Oh yeah.
Because you had dark colors, and then boom, you started putting the magentas and the royals and the neon colors in against the dark, which was really cool, really edgy.
Thank you so much.
But then, you're in vogue with Game of Thrones because the last season was way too
Dark.
Very dark. And it's hard because it's like dingy night Vegas, and like any little bit of light in
No,
the
that's
music.
exactly what it was supposed to be.
Thank you so much.
But for just the first couple of minutes or so, it was like, oh, it should be a little bit brighter.
No, I can't see it. Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Yeah, that's something we're working on for the future.
Well, it might be this room too, we have a lot.
Well, yeah, it's even darker than it was when you started.
Yeah.
Yes. So, any other questions?
Why'd you specifically?
Oh my gosh. Okay. Yeah. I'm gonna start.
Why'd you specifically call it Kingpin?
Kingpin because I love that word. I also grew up with gangster films, and I was that weird kid on the playground that was like, I want to be Michael Corleone in The Godfather. So being a Kingpin is just so important to me. I actually had some people try and pitch the title Queenpin to me, but I feel like it's a little too on the nose.
Yeah.
So I wanted to just I wanted a nice, short and sweet thing, But
You could have put the new Kingpin.
the new Kingpin, that's the sequel.
Yeah.
That's the sequel right there.
Neo King.
Yeah.
The Squeakle.
The sequel, it's a musical.
I just want to know what everyone's favorite scene to shoot was.
Mine was the dance sequence, which I'm going to ask Stefan a question about later. But mine was the dance sequence, Rebecca.
I don't know. It wasn't very fun for me to be
I
on
mean,
set
scene to
shooting because I
edit.
did, scene to edit was definitely the beginning because I love editing to music.
I think that's hard because I liked any scene where I was able to sort of let loose pent-up anger. And it's not even like pent-up anger. I think a lot of it I was actually focusing at a societal level. So like a lot of that aggression that is seen is very real anger that's focused towards a lot of these aspects. And so anytime I got to yell, I thought
Every scene.
every scene. I like shooting every
We
scene.
were going for like a Joe Pesci, like he's just so aggressive
Yeah.
for no reason.
Stay there. Let's go.
In particular, the final scene where my character Bill is getting dragged away. That was one of the funnest takes in, we just spent 2 hours for that for less than a minute's worth of film, and it was hilarious. You know, I just couldn't be serious for most of it. So I had a great time during that sequence. I liked that. It was fun.
Anna,
Well, here's the thing.
go and talk about it.
Both the scenes that were shown that I was in were like very challenging things for me because it was like awkward and then like also like that's like scene was so out of character. I'm looking at Erynn, I'm like, Erynn, I don't know how to flirt. So, what do I do? I don't understand how, I don't do that. So like, it was, I think the one that was more fun was the bedroom scene because of the amount of like, you know, inside jokes that happened out of it.
Directing through a sex scene is hilarious.
So, it's just one of those things where you're like, this is life, this is what I'm doing, and like you watch all these interviews of other actors who have gone through the same situation, and they're like, nothing prepares you for that. You're like, well, that's not helpful because I need you to prepare me for this. So I guess I could say, I think the scene that I actually enjoyed the most that didn't make it was the scene where you kind of saw a little bit more of Candace's like morality, and she has this moment where she talks about like this like incredible like this guilt that she's feeling for the situation and how she's actually trying to work through the guilt that she has for the situation that she put herself in and between, you know, someone who she respected. And so that was technically my favorite scene.
Deleted scene
The deleted
on the DVD
scene.
edition.
Yeah, you'll see. But yeah, it's, I guess the more fun scene was the bedroom scene because we had a lot of fun with that one.
Evelyn.
Yeah, I think honestly that bedroom scene specifically, specifically the part like with the slapping and everything because I think
Other bedroom. Sorry.
I think we shot it all the same day, so in my mind it's like just one really long scene.
Yeah,
No.
it was all the same day.
But like I think because Erynn and Vince both had like really good acting energy, so like being able to be on set and like it was like good when they're doing the scene, and then immediately as the cameras go off, there's also, you know, good energy in a more healthy way than is presented in the film.
Also, I kept flubbing my lines specifically, so I'd storm in and be like, Bill, blah, 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 blah. So Evelyn heard a lot in the boom bowl, let me tell you.
Yeah.
Vince had a few himself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my god, sometimes I'll grab the boom bowl and just whisper things to Evelyn.
I think that's also why I like that scene, because as a sound person, when you can shoot in a tiny room with lots of stuff in it where there's no reverb and no background noise, that's like the best moment. So on a more professional level, I appreciate it.
Kevin.
Hands down, the first couple lines between me and Vince.
Yeah.
It'll forever be a comedic moment for me because I think it took us like 5 times. I don't think I could get through a couple words without laughing.
Yeah. I couldn't get through the script.
Yeah.
It was
It took a solid half an hour for me to get serious with it.
Yeah.
And then the second the camera shut off, I lost it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was a hard thing for me to get through.
Yeah.
But simultaneously the most fun for me. So.
I have to say that you don't look anything like you do on
You're much taller.
Oh, he doesn't have an accent?
Yeah, there's the
TV.
Love the 70s.
No accident.
Yeah.
Actually, I'd like Lester Diamond so much that we came up with a backstory
Oh yeah, I
about
come
how
down
he
from a
got
crew
his
meeting and
money.
they have a whole backstory
Yeah,
for him.
and it was going to be a prequel to the film called the Diamond Necklace Affair. It was about Lester Diamond getting the money from his father.
That's how I got my name.
That's how he got it. You discover how Lester Diamond became Lester Diamond, and that was just.
Soon they'll know.
So that was just one of the. Yeah, I agree. That was absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, that was something.
Do you think he was really a good poker player? Was he?
Yeah, I think he got cheated. I think he did. Well, I mean, he definitely got cheated. I think he got lucky too.
Yeah.
But I think he was probably like, my impression was, and this is kind of why I went to Southern Spin, is he was just kind of entitled, you know,
Yeah.
gifted everything his whole life.
Right.
So why not this game?
Right.
And so when he got taken from him,
Yeah.
he just
Except he got cheated.
Yeah.
Yeah, this time he managed to do, he got a pretty good deal going, but then
Right.
everyone ruined it for him.
Everyone else out cheated the cheater.
Right, yeah. Stefan?
I think it was all a blast to light. That I mean, just to pick just one, I really think the scene, the argument between you and Vince, I really liked, and then the dance scene, I think.
Okay,
Like,
that's where we're gonna go into this.
Yeah.
Stefan was the only man on set for that. It's all women. My two DPs, they couldn't be here tonight, unfortunately, but they're both women, you know, and you know, we're all the women all in our lingerie running around, like, doing our thing, you know. And Stefan had this joke where every 5 minutes he'd go, "What kind of movie is this?" So Stefan, as such a, like, you know, as such a supportive man on crew, and somebody who's so empowering to everybody, regardless of background, regardless of gender, anything like that. How do you be an ally to women?
That was an amazing thing for me, because, I mean, just the fact that I was the only man in the room with a bunch of women making a film, like that right there.
Shit.
Yeah. I mean, that right there is so monumental. A moment for film at any level, that it was just phenomenal to watch. You know, you and Nicole set the scenes, and all of these other things that were going on, and the direction that you were giving, as you know, Anna was setting up, or as everyone was setting up, all around. It was just amazing to watch, and I think for me, just to kind of just run around and just kind of be a part of that, I was like honored and amazed that, and kind of just like inspired to think that this is a thing now, and like we need more of this. And we need to get to a point where it's not a unique thing. It's not a notable or even mentionable thing. It just is. But yeah, I really thought a lot about that. Like you said, the shift that, you know, of how many times can we probably go back and find in history where there was only one woman on a set. And this was a reversal of that, and to me it was just phenomenal. It was amazing in every single way. That it's like, it's almost indescribable to say. And I think for me, I think the important thing is you know, having worked with Erynn before on some of her other projects, is I think the best thing that I can do is like I try and just like bring whatever support I can and just like dive in, and you know, I may offer a suggestion here or there, but otherwise I just, you know, let her do her thing.
It's a solid collaboration. And
love
men,
watch
I
her
love
work.
you. If you're out there, don't feel, you know, I love your opinion. It's all good, you know. It's just
I love watching Erynn work, and any, not just any woman who's any part of film, but especially directing, because like you said before, there are you know, so few. I mean, it's shifting. Certainly now more so than it was in the past, but I think we need so many more female voices in film, direction, storytelling, and everything. So, yeah, that was amazing.
Yeah, I think that was beautiful.
How long was this film?
About 15 minutes with credits.
You know, it was really concise statement about a build-up about women's roles and subordinate women's roles, but a dominant woman coming to power, you know, within 15 minutes. Kaboom!
Thank you.
Thank you. And in that case, and reflecting back to, you know, historic, powerful woman. In that case, you did a whole lot better job than Game of Thrones.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Daenerys Targaryen. Oh wait, that.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, I'm not gonna
Yes.
spoil
In
anything.
15 minutes, boom, there you go.
Yeah.
Right? Thank you so much.
It's fine, not spoiling already.
Yeah. Any other? Yes.
So recently, within the last 5 years or so, there's been a lot of shift of either retelling other franchise films from a women's perspective, like Ghostbusters and Ocean's 8, or finally making a women-led film like the Wonder Woman and Captain Marvel. Do you think that gangster films are the next one that might open up to women, or do you think that there's those other traditional roadblocks that won't make enough money, people won't intend to go see it, and then also like other roadblocks, or I guess that's your
No, that's a good
on
question.
that.
Yeah, Anna, do you want to say something?
Oh, I was telling you about this.
Oh, there was a diamond conversation. So yeah, that's a super interesting question. Yeah, I think my being particularly picking the gangster film, like I always say my favorite 3 genres are the trio that popped up in the Great Depression. So that's the Hollywood musical, the gangster film, and the screwball. So I just kind of gravitated towards that, but I think that genre film is an interesting place to start for women, because so many films now aren't quite genre pieces. And also it's difficult now too, because we have so much like homaging. You don't quite get Tarantino homaging all the time. You get like straight like ripping off, and like the exact same thing over and over again. So I think genre film is a good next step for women, because so many genres were defined by male filmmakers, male filmmakers, because all of those genres were really defined in the studio Hollywood system. So by that point, a lot of the women-directed films weren't necessarily, a thing anymore. You have Hedy Lamarr trying, but like her one attempt didn't. So I think genre film is a good place to start, because it's just giving that secondary perspective to genre film.
Well, and I think in the climate that we're in right now too, there's that opening that we have for like genre films being a little bit more inclusive in general.
Yeah.
And kind of opening out to all kinds of representation that we're finally starting to be able to have, and like the representation is being represented by actual people. That representation, so like people with disabilities, people of the LGBTQI community, and the allies, and all in between is really having that opportunity
and also,
to come in.
Yeah, and on the franchise note, I think Hollywood doesn't quite know what it's doing right now because of social media. It has created a new type of independent filmmaking that, you see Steven Spielberg, for example, he was part of the first independent filmmaking push, but even he doesn't understand it. He always is like, why are Netflix getting nominated for Oscars, blah, 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 blah. So even these age-old filmmakers who kind of went through the same thing, they don't quite understand the independent push for film that's going right now. So I think it's a good time for independent film to be able to tell more inclusive stories.
It's also, I think, a responsibility because of our political atmosphere that's coming out. I have said this for a couple of years now, is that filmmakers are the new, shepherds of social understanding.
Yeah.
So our generations and even some that are older than us and younger than us, they go and get their information from films or television shows. And so it was a big thing in early Greek philosophical culture that you're developing the Western storylines, you are responsible now for how this gets put out to the public and then how the public treats that. And so specifically, you're talking about genre films, I would love to see historical genre films from women's perspective. And you never get that, even though we have movies like or like Elizabeth. Elizabeth R. You're trying, but you're not. You're telling about a female in history, not exactly from her perspective, more of how males interact with her. And so it's time to start pushing more, taking that responsibility because of the pushback we're getting from the more, I would say, traditionalist side and Puritan side of American identity. And we need to really push that hard. And I think that people like Erynn, Erynn does a good job with it, which is taking that responsibility and putting people in uncomfortable positions in which they need to think about certain aspects of their enculturation. And to stay, I guess, constant in our ways is not gonna we're not gonna move forward with anything.
Yeah, and I'm privileged because I'm in a position where I can express that and be a voice for women as well. And I mean, you know, I also don't want to I don't want it to seem like I hate film history or where it's coming from. I have a lot of respect for film history. I was empowered by, you know, male-led gangster films and the women in them, you know. So it's not that, you know, the male perspective is bad at all, you know. It's that we need the equivalent female
Yeah.
perspective.
But
We
even
need to
now, that
balance
has changed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's changed because it's corporatized, totally.
Yeah.
corporatized.
Yeah.
You know, it's all about Marvel Comics and
100%.
everything else that is that,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
But also something that Erynn says a lot is like, we eat at the same table. And, you know, it's like, and even if we don't eat the same table, I still want you to be successful. So it's that kind of thing where she really pushes everybody lifting each other up. And we're kind of trying to lift women up while still lifting men up too, and finding that equal push of everybody having a film that they can be empowered by, or a film that they can connect to. And so it's that we all can eat at the same table.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's kind of a big key, and why I really like working with Erynn, because there's so many voices that have been traditionally kind of marginalized in Hollywood, and whether those be people of color, and whether those be female filmmakers and everything. And I think it really depends now on a collaboration between those marginalized voices to get all of the collective voices heard across the gamut, then rather than everybody just trying to kind of do their own thing, which is certainly okay.
Yeah.
But I think that collaborative effort is so huge and so important right now for everyone to support each other across all of those groups.
Yeah, and I think we're stronger together. You know, it doesn't matter your political background, your political beliefs, your religious beliefs, you know, who you are, where you came from, your background. I think we're all stronger together, and we need to normalize collaboration between different opinions and different backgrounds and things like that. And that's also a huge thing in my projects, even aside from just the women piece of it.
Yeah.
Across the board from the bottom up.
That's
Yes,
it,
yes,
bottom, the bottom up, yeah,
100%,
exactly.
yeah.
Absolutely.
And yeah, collective bargaining,
Yeah.
historically, of course, it's what makes for.
Yeah.
So.
Any more questions?
Who's everyone's favorite character from Kingpin?
Mine is Gigi.
I can't who you play.
Oh, can't be who you play? Okay.
Wait, say
It
that.
can't be who you play.
Oh, can't be who I played. I like how ridiculous Bill is. It just kills me. Yeah, Lester too. Yeah. Rebecca.
I liked Ace.
Oh yeah, Ace is such a good boy. He's a good old boy.
Good boy.
I love that bit.
Oh, I love Lester Diamond. Like, just when we were, just because you know, Kevin and I were sitting down looking at our characters and developing them at almost the exact same time. And I was just like, oh my god, Lester Diamond it's like, and with the accent, like, the accent, it was so funny. And like, there were so many times when I would pick up on the accent and like, I'd have to just
Yeah,
scrap
went
it
to a lot of inside jokes.
a
The
lot.
very first screening, everyone's just quoting along, and I just
Yeah.
just Lester
Just
Diamond
Lester.
quotes.
Well, I also work with Sean we work together, and
He plays Ace.
He plays Ace, and he literally just comes up to me. We'll be at a bar, and he just drops some random Lester Diamond quote, and I'm like, no one around us understands what's going on. We're in stitches, like living on the counter, laughing about these quotes. So definitely most quotable.
Anna?
Mickey was my favorite character. I liked his values, and I really appreciated the fact that, like, even though it was like a gangster film, like in the Vegas and slang, he still had these really strong values, and he just like wanted to support like this woman so much, and like he loved this girl so much that he would go where she went, and I thought that was a nice flip that you don't usually see men have, and so I really appreciated how well he was written, and I guess how well Johnny played or whatever.
Yeah, perfect. Evelyn?
Well, yeah, I said my favorite character is that bear in the
That I hate the set dressing because so for those of you, when Bill's like, you want to come with me to Beth, and she's like, no, she stands up, and in the background is just this bear that just is sitting in the background that I forgot to take out of the shot before.
It's my girlfriend's bear that she gave me.
Oh, like a teddy bear?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even
So it really adds to Bill's
Rewatchability.
Every
Yeah.
time.
My God, you said in that scene too, what'd you say that was like, I'm scared? I was like,
It's a lot of
weird.
method acting there. Actually, just straight up getting almost drunk on set. It's fine.
Yeah, I think again, like I really do like. We just talked about it, but I forget Sean's character and Johnny's character. Yeah, Ace and Mickey, because they are. I think talking about this being a film through the female lens and all. I think because you can't really talk about one gender without really talking about the inverse of that. So I think in this film, though it is a film ultimately about a woman, we also kind of explore a lot of different type of men characters, from Bill, who's very aggressive and very abusive, to those two who are a little more reserved and a little more thoughtful. And so I think was kind of a cool element of the whole.
Bill.
The ultimate romance.
Yeah.
Bill
No,
was
it was
awesome.
awesome. I just love watching it. It's just, I don't know why it's funny. It's just great.
It's just that
Yeah, I mean-
absurd angry where all you can do is laugh because
It
you
was
don't
like,
understand. Like,
it was just the perfect amount of overplay. And it was
that was part of it.
Yeah.
Now
That's that type of man, they're just
Yeah.
they're just too much every time,
the quotability too, it's like, oh,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, you can quote my character by just throwing in that bomb.
I want to count the number, there should be like hashtag 850.
I had my mentor read it, his name's
Reading
Robert
Max.
von Dussenowski, he's an old Viennese man, and he goes, Erynn, there was a lot of F words in this. You need all of it.
You need all that.
Yeah. Bill needed those.
I really do love that. You gotta have big balls.
That's my favorite. That's my favorite line.
I like it a lot because Vince kept saying it as you have big balls,
Yeah.
and until the actual day on set, he kept saying you have big balls.
Yeah.
It's not the line, but it was close.
Yeah, that shot took
So long.
Yeah.
It did.
It took
And I was sitting in the other room doing makeup over to
I
Oh, yeah.
definitely canceled a rehearsal because my shot took so long
I
to get
love
to.
you. Love you so much. Stefan?
Gosh, there's like so many to choose from, but I think there's two really. I mean, first off, I think to have this story of a strong female character, and I think like you said before, that's nothing new, but to see it from a female lens, as this whole thing is framed, I think that's what's fun for me, because the changes are simultaneously subtle but stark. They're
It's very stark.
yeah, and it's amazing, I think, to see the parallels. So, of course, our lead is, and then also Mr. Diamond. That was so much fun watching those scenes shot. That was.
And I don't want
That
to
was
take
a
credit
blast.
for his name, but if you've seen Casino, it's a Martin Scorsese film with Joe Pesci and Sharon Stone. I pulled the name from Sharon Stone's creepy boyfriend. His name is Lester Diamond, because it's just so funny.
Yeah.
How did you come up with Bill? I'm just wondering.
Bill, there's a specific character I pulled from named Bill. It might be Destry Rise Again, I'm not 100% sure. I pulled it from a gangster film,
Yeah.
but I don't remember which one off the top of my head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kill Bill, yeah, I mean, that would have worked.
Yeah.
Oh, that worked. Yeah.
That's an answer.
They're
Was
pretty.
there a Bill in that? I don't know.
Bill and Kill Bill.
They're a main character.
Any other questions or anything?
Wait, I don't think we should forget about Joe's character, Joe, because I mean, he was kind of like an unsung
Yeah.
hero, because
Yeah.
he was the first one who really talked to Gigi like a person.
That is
Yeah.
true.
Yeah, he was the one.
Shout out.
Yeah, shout out.
And he was the one that was
Very
like, oh,
true,
if I
very
have
true.
Joe on my side, then we can
Yeah.
get Bill out of
Get
here.
everyone out of here.
Because she went to Ace second.
That's
She talked with
true.
Bill
Yeah.
first.
Yeah.
That's
I mean,
Joe
I
is the
have to make it
unsung
without
hero.
Karen.
Yeah.
True.
I like that.
you're.
that Evelyn made about how, yeah, the story's in the voice of a female lens, but you have to in some way kind of put the context of the opposite of the female voice, and that you did have a spectrum of different male personalities that
Yeah.
led up. If you wouldn't have said that, I wouldn't have gotten it, but that's a big takeaway too.
And that was important for me going into the project because, you know, I'm not, you know, there's a place where I completely understand and that opinion is valid, but I'm not the woman who's like against all men.
Yeah.
You know, because there's, you know, there are different types of men, and I think the psychology of what makes a man uncomfortable with a woman in power versus the psychology of a man that isn't uncomfortable with a woman in power is so interesting. But
Well, I think you had a good, because you did have so many scenes where you showed like these tough guys like being very vulnerable.
Yeah.
We actually had a couple of scenes that were cut with Mickey, which was Johnny's character, where he was showing like genuine concern for like Anna's character, and
that we had B plot that was
It was really sweet, okay? Really bitter about it.
well, I don't know. It was just like, however, even like his motivations were a little like, he's still kind of scummy, but like at the end of the day, he still cares about this woman. So like, I don't know. It was like, and with Bill, I'm scared. As funny as that line is, that's like showing a weak moment of vulnerability when drunk.
I think adding on to that too, what you kind of missed from not like being able to get the B plot in is that Candace and Mickey had very flipped roles from like traditional male-female roles. And like Candace was the one who was like sleeping around with other people and like, you know, she was kind of being a scumbag, and he was like very true to her. Like he only wanted to be like, he had eyes for her, and he kind of like let her walk all over him. And at the end of the day, even she was like, oh yeah, I do want to be with Mickey. He like welcomed her back, and it was very flipped from some traditional roles that you see. And so like you got to see a not so nice like woman who's like just gonna fold her hands in her lap, and you saw a man in that role. And so they were a nice B plot in that way too.
Yeah.
There are so many different types of people, you know. Like you can't group everyone into like a big old box of like man bad, women bad, man good, women good. You know, so it's a spectrum for everyone for sure. But yeah.
If you were to make the film longer, what would you do? What would you expand on to make it longer?
Probably expand the heist. I would definitely expand the heist, like the planning of the heist, the like, you know, the schematics of everything and all of that. I would put Candace in the heist because somebody's upset that Candace wasn't in the heist. And then I would have definitely tried to delve into the B plot with Candace and Mickey a bit more in a way that would have been like complementary instead of like, you know, fighting with the other story. Because the reason why it ended up getting cut was because, you know, you have a script and the script works, you know what I mean, and the script, you know, has flows. But then when you get the visuals a part of it, it's just things work together in a different kind of way. And for the short format, I personally have a hard time with shorter format films. I like stuff that's a little bit longer, like 40 minutes plus is where I excel a little bit better. So trying to figure all that out, if I were to expand it to 40 minutes or longer, I would have put in a lot, because I love ensemble stuff and I love ensemble casts, and so telling more stories is more important to me than anything. So I guess I would have just expanded upon the stories being told in a longer format.
And a pie fight.
And I would have a pie fight. Don't you touch those chips and pulls out a banana cream pie.
Moves on to another set.
We're just gonna read you Blazing
The
Saddles.
whole
You should do Blazing
box office success.
Oh, that would be so good.
Right? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Well, the Diamond Affair will end it in a pie fight.
He escapes with all the money.
Any other questions for now while we all sounds good. So one more round of applause for everyone. And thank you all for coming, you know, get some more food, hang out, you know, all that stuff. Thank you all. I really appreciate you all. And have a wonderful night. Thank you.
Oh, before everyone goes,